How are you today? IB Nation Sports Talk. We're up and rolling. Glad to have you with us. He's Vince D'Addario. I'm Sean Stiers. Apparently, Salty is MIA right now. Tommy's looking for our old buddy Salty. I have no idea where
it's
he
not
is.
Good.
And he put me on the clock. Tommy did. And, you know, as I said yesterday, I did a solo show yesterday. We started right on time.
I was here prior to 5 o'clock. That's all I'm gonna say. By 2 minutes.
I don't know about that. You know that we've got to talk about something before we get started.
That's true. That's true. I gave zero time for pregame talk.
That's right. Yeah. You want to talk, you got to get here like at least 5 minutes early. So
it's true.
Even then, we'd probably still slide in a little bit late.
I got a good story for you afterwards.
Oh, okay. Is this off mic story?
It's about a transfer student from my school to the school you call games for.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
So,
very interesting.
Yeah, I want you to keep your eyes peeled on that one.
All right. I will. I'm curious to see what that's all about.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll be out there, of course, this fall for the first time in a long time.
That's right.
I think it's been at least, 6 years maybe since Mishawaka visited.
Since they stopped. Oh, I could look it up. I'm sure I've got it here.
I want to say 2017 was when they went out there, and you and I weren't doing games together yet. I was with
oh, that's a good point. I didn't even think about that.
Well, Coach Bovin Kirk there for a while.
So let's see here. It was early in the season. Oh, here we go. So they played Penn in 2019 was the most recent season.
But that was at Mishawaka, right?
That was at Mishawaka. At Penn was 2018.
2018. Okay. So I was off by a year. So it's been almost 5 years.
And that's where they beat Penn in overtime.
Right.
That was a big one.
That was the Ron Paulus III sacked on the last play.
Yes. Yep. I remember that one, actually.
Yep.
And then Penn got the revenge after that, and then they haven't played since.
Yeah. So. Crying Belly taking shots at Nirvana. Okay, whatever.
Wow.
Never mind. Ah!
It's because of your shirt. Okay.
Yes.
Got it.
Yes. All right, well, let's get started. We've got plenty to talk about here today. I mean, we've got a pretty full list of topics.
Smorgasbord.
Today. We do, yeah. And it kind of hits a little bit of everything. And, of course, hit that like button for us and subscribe, rate, and review. So Notre Dame just announced it's been invited to join the Association of American Universities, AAU for short. And per Notre Dame president, Father John Jenkins, the association is the invitation to the association is a milestone in Notre Dame's, quote, quest to be a preeminent research institution with superb graduate education, end quote. So this announcement, Vince, has led many to the conclusion that Notre Dame's getting ready to join the Big Ten. What do you think about that?
I think that is about as big of a leap as you could possibly have. It has nothing to do with the Big Ten. Zero to do with the Big Ten. If anything, I mean, Notre Dame is more academically like-minded with the ACC than they are with the Big Ten, period. And so I would disagree wholeheartedly that has anything to do with Notre Dame joining the Big Ten. I don't know how they would even connect the dots on that because it sounds ridiculous. And those are all the people that want them to join the Big Ten, in my opinion.
Well, I do agree with that last part. The dots are all the schools in the Big Ten are a member of the association with the exception of Nebraska.
Okay.
So that's why everyone is making this leap, because all these Big Ten schools are members of the association.
That's a leap.
What's weird is, I haven't heard much talk about UC Riverside getting ready to join the Big Ten. They were one of the other 5 schools along, 6 schools in total that got an invitation. South Florida, Arizona State, Miami, are they all Big Ten bound as well? I just
stupid. Like
I know.
It's a stretch, man. It's a massive stretch.
I completely agree. And just add it to the list of,
right.
Like USC and UCLA are going to the Big Ten. Oh, that means Notre Dame's next. They're going to go to the Big Ten. Texas and Oklahoma going to the SEC. Well, Notre Dame's going to have to join a conference here pretty soon. And, all of the Notre Dame joining a conference talk comes from where? Outside the Notre Dame bubble. People who spend their time doing nothing but complaining about Notre Dame not being in a conference. That's where the vast majority of this, well, Notre Dame's going to join a conference now. It's like, I'm not good at math, but 1 + 1 does not equal 4.
Exactly. Exactly. Everything that happens across the landscape of college football to a very small sect of people think that means Notre Dame is joining the Big Ten. Like, no, it doesn't. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. And I know the people in the chat have heard me say this 1,000 times, and it's still going to be true. Until Notre Dame is shut out of the opportunity to play for a national championship, they're not joining a conference.
Well, don't forget the TV contract, though, because that's what, that's obviously the next step, and it's the last
I agree.
piece.
Then they're going to get their money they're going to get their money.
Right. But could this be a little bit of a backup plan for Notre Dame? Like in case, again, with all the other Big Ten schools, with the exception of Nebraska, and apparently Nebraska was a member when they joined the conference, but they got kicked out because they did something. I don't know exactly what it is, but maybe it is a little bit of a fallback plan, because Notre Dame has a TV contract with NBC that runs 2 more seasons. They've got this season and next season, 2024, which means sometime probably within the next year, I think we're going to find out whether or not they're going to get enough money from, whether it's to renew or from another network or whatever it happens to be. But Jack Swarbrick has said, they've got to get the kind of money out of their next TV deal to be competitive with the kind of money the Big Ten and the SEC are making. So, if that doesn't materialize, stay tuned. But this, again, 1 + 2 doesn't equal 4. Just because they're making this move now means nothing ultimately. Could they still end up in the Big Ten? Sure, but a lot's got to happen.
Between
now and then
has to happen. A lot. And they haven't even started ticking any of those boxes, in my opinion, to for them to join a conference. It's not going to happen.
Exactly. Fill in the blank. It's blank that Micah Shrewsberry has rounded out his first Notre Dame basketball staff with Ryan Owens, whose most recent coaching experience is at the AAU level.
It's an interesting move. Now, here's what I'll say. Right now, the trend in recruiting for college basketball specifically is the AAU circuit. It just is, right? High school basketball is one thing, and it's great, and I love it. But that's not where these kids are getting recruited. They're getting recruited on the summer AAU circuits and the big tournaments that all the college coaches are going to, et cetera, et cetera. Bringing somebody in the fold that has experience in the AAU circuit, that has connections in the AAU circuit, I get it. I mean, it makes sense. And there's, I kind of look at it from the adage of, if you can teach, I can teach you to coach, right? So if this guy is a good teacher, I can teach him to coach the X's and O's. You know what I mean? And if he's a good recruiter, I can teach you to coach, right? I feel that way in this instance. I don't know how good or bad of a coach he is, but if he's got a bunch of connections in the AAU world, then honestly, as long as you are comfortable with the fact that you can teach him to coach these kids up, then I have no problem with it. I really don't.
Yeah. I'm going to go back to a couple comments in the chat here in a minute on the last subject, but I want to talk about this first because I just saw them kind of after we got started on this. I think this is a really interesting move. And here's a tweet from Purdue's Matt Painter. His Twitter handle is actually Purdue's Matt Painter, interestingly enough.
Like that.
And then, since there's very few since the blue check marks today don't mean anything because anyone can pay to get one. I checked it out, and Purdue's Matt Painter has 45,000 plus followers. So I'm guessing it's the true Purdue's Matt Painter. Yeah. But he says, what a great hire by Shrews with the addition of Ryan Owens as an assistant basketball coach. His contacts in the state and basketball pedigree will give an immediate boost to their program. And it's like, I was shocked. You've got an opposing coach in the same state who's making a statement like this. I think it speaks to both, what he thinks about Shrewsberry and what he thinks about Owens. And, like you said, the guy hasn't coached in college since 2005, and that was at DePaul, the Division III down there outside of Indianapolis and Greencastle. So other than that, he's been coaching AAU, but what that means, like you said, he's got the connections with recruiting, like he's got the connections to all these different coaches. He's obviously got the connections to the current players. That'll kind of go away at some point where, most of the connections are going to be with the coaches. But on top of this, the other interesting move, again, this is the last piece to the staff that Shrewsberry's got. Shrewsberry already added a recruiting coordinator to the staff. That's something that Mike Bray never did. He never had a recruiting coordinator when he was head coach at Notre Dame. So he's got this guy, Brian Snow, who's now the basketball, men's basketball equivalent of Chad Bowden. And I think that, it's just another indication of how much more seriously Shrewsberry is taking recruiting. And go back to his introductory press conference where he talked about prioritizing the state of Indiana when it comes to recruiting. I think he's doubling down on that. And I think exciting times are starting to brew here for Notre Dame men's basketball, just the way he's handling this whole thing.
Well, and he obviously recruiting is important. I mean, he and it's a priority for him. And recruiting hasn't been a priority for Notre Dame basketball in recent memory. I mean, that's just a fact, right? It's not it. That's my opinion. That's just a fact. And I love the fact that it is a priority for Micah Shrewsberry to not only set up his staff full of good recruiters, but also to have support staff where recruiting is a priority. Like, I mean, to you and me, like from the outside looking in, that seems obvious. Like if you're going to build a program, recruiting should be at the forefront of your thought process. But that just hasn't been the case at Notre Dame. So it's a whole new world, Sean, as Aladdin likes to say, and I am here for it. I'm excited.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. Very excited.
Honestly, this is one of the things that's going to bring me to Purcell Pavilion to watch games because I think he's a good coach, number one. I think he's a motivator, number two, and he's a good recruiter, number three. This team's going to be fun to watch. I'm not saying they're going to win a bunch of games this year coming up. I'm not saying that. But I still feel like they're going to be fun to watch and they're going to be fun to root for. It's hard to root for the last few seasons, in my opinion, at Notre Dame. It was hard to root for those guys and for Mike Bray in particular. It was hard.
You're going to see a lot different style this year. And I'm
here for it.
I'm anxious and excited to see what that looks like. All right, so I want to go back. A couple comments from the chat. As we were talking about, the TV deal and the Big Ten and all that kind of stuff. Crying Belly is, he's like rattling off grievance after grievance right now in the chat. I don't know who got into his Wheaties this morning, but he says that Notre Dame would be the 5th biggest brand in the Big Ten. And I'm like, Ohio State and Michigan are obviously big brands.
Well, later on, he called Notre Dame Penn State light. So I guess that he puts Penn State ahead of Notre Dame, which is hilarious.
How?
You telling me Penn State is a bigger brand? Notre Dame is
still a national brand.
Come on. That's
as of
ridiculous.
right now. Now, you can argue that do they get swallowed up a little bit if they, like is USC a bigger brand than Notre Dame? Because that's USC is obviously going to be there. But who would be the 5 or who would be the 4 in front of them? Are you going to say Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, USC? Like those are all 4 bigger brands than Notre Dame. I'm not buying that.
That's a hard sell. Hard sell.
No. You can argue, based on more recent playoff appearances, obviously Ohio State and Michigan have Notre Dame, but slightly. Notre Dame obviously made 2 playoff appearances before Michigan did. But, you can argue that those 3 are interchangeable. And what's USC done lately? Lincoln Riley's still got to prove that he can win. He got him to a better bowl game last year, but they lost to Tulane. And now they're going to go into the Big Ten.
Well, and
so.
the comment is that they're the fifth biggest brand, not the fifth best team. Those are two completely different conversations.
Yeah, exactly. Notre Dame becomes brand number one.
Sorry, that's just a fact. Like, you can say whatever you want. Michigan fans aren't around the country. They're in the Midwest. Same with Ohio State, for that matter. Maybe a little bit more broad than Michigan fans. Penn State certainly is not a national brand. I mean, if we're talking brand, this is not even a conversation. If you want to talk about who the best team is,
right,
I'll entertain that conversation. That's
good
fine.
clarification. Good clarification.
Yeah,
you're exactly right. Yeah, there's
here you
not
go.
Another.
Well, he's clarifying himself. He said if it was the best team, we would be the 8th best team in the Big Ten.
Wow.
Dude,
somebody's
you're cruising for a timeout right now. Is what I'll say.
Somebody's really.
This isn't even a conversation, man. You're not even getting anybody mad. It's just you sound ridiculous.
That's right.
They're the 10th best team in the country according to the polls, but they're the 8th best team in the Big Ten. Come on.
I'll speak coach's language. You're like a mom complaining about playing time right now. It's just all falling on deaf ears, Let's.
Oh my gosh.
Let's reel it in a little bit. Ryan, though, says NBC's not giving Notre Dame $75 million for home games. It is a question on whether or not they're going to, but also it doesn't have to be NBC. I've said before,
correct.
All you need is 2 different broadcast entities to create a bidding war. And Notre Dame, again, is a very valuable product. And I think that there will be a bidding war. And with what NBC is shelling out, and we're going to talk about some of the games that they're shelling out all this money for here in just a second, with what NBC is shelling out for Big Ten games, this does nothing but bolster Notre Dame's position, is what that does. They wanted more than just half a Notre Dame schedule on TV every week. Now they've got full, as they called it, shoulder programming, and they're flooding NBC with it. They're flooding the Peacock app with it, and it does nothing but bring Notre Dame's value up. It does not diminish Notre Dame's value, because Notre Dame, when you look at the kind of games that are going, that are going in these primetime slots and on the Peacock, Notre Dame is still going to have the more desirable matchups more times than not.
But they're not a national brand, so it doesn't matter.
All right. So on the subject of TV games, we talked a little earlier this week about the new NBC Big Ten primetime football package that'll bring you the scintillating Maryland-Charlotte matchup September 9th. NBC also announced 3 Big Ten games this week that are going to be streamed exclusively on the Peacock app in September. They are, you ready for this? Michigan versus East Carolina, Penn State versus Delaware, and then Washington versus Michigan State. So what do you think of this NBC Peacock streaming strategy, Vince D'Addario?
I would figure games like Michigan versus East Carolina, Penn State versus Delaware, I don't have a problem with those kinds of games being on Peacock, because that's basically the way that they've done things with Notre Dame in the past, right? It's a lesser opponent, it's got to be put someplace. We'll put it on Peacock. The Washington-Michigan State game is a little perplexing to me as to why I feel like they're taking a semi-marquee game out for a test drive on Peacock to see how it does.
To see, exactly.
And it's interesting. And I will be the first one to say I hope it doesn't do very well, because I don't want to see Notre Dame prime games on Peacock.
Well, and I've got a more specific question about Notre Dame coming up here, but what's really interesting about that, kickoff times are, 4 months away at this point. But that game, the Washington-Michigan State game, is slated to kick off at 5:00. Notre Dame Central Michigan, also on the Peacock app, that same day is scheduled to kick off at 2:30 per what NBC announced both of those kickoff times. So they've got those games kicking off 2.5 hours apart. Something's going to have to, because they're both on the Peacock app. One of those kickoff times is going to have to change.
Yeah, good call.
I'll be if we, I'll be curious to see if we get like a 1 o'clock Notre Dame game, or
I
do
don't
they move
think
that
so.
other game back a little bit later?
They're going to have to simulcast on Peacock, because it's just going to be like ESPN when they have multiple games on at the same time.
Just multiple channels on Peacock, basically.
Because I mean, Peacock is the same as anything else. Like, you just pick the game you want to watch, and then that's the one you're watching. So
I've never done anything. I've never done anything live on Peacock because I've been at the stadium, when the Notre Dame games are going on. So I have no idea how the live stuff works on Peacock. I guess I did try the Olympics, and that was a train wreck because
it was, but there were multiple things going on at the same time, and so that did work. And that's probably what they would end up doing. They're not changing the time of Notre Dame's football game. That's not ever going to happen. They've already announced those times.
Yeah, it's not exactly a running clock. Mace, AK, it's not exactly a running clock.
Yeah.
And they're not finishing a Notre Dame game in 2.5 hours. I'm sorry. It's still, you're talking 3 hours minimum, really probably 3 hours and 15 minutes minimum, because Notre Dame home games average like 3.5 to 3:45.
Right.
So I didn't think about the fact that you could just do it on different channels within the app, but you're also taking a very good risk that you're going to crash your app, based on what kind of bandwidth that you have going in. So
that's true.
I
watch most of everything on stream. So
yeah, you're much more versed in the stream thing.
It doesn't really bother me. Like the whole going to Peacock doesn't bother me because I have Peacock. It bothers me if I don't have Peacock, right? Like, it bothers me that Cubs games run marquee because I don't get marquee. Like,
right.
So it's really, at the end of the day, it's all about how does it affect the individual person? You know what I mean? And
sure,
since I have Xfinity Internet, I get Peacock for free. So not a problem, right? My ESPN, I stream it. So like, that's not that big of a deal, So again, it doesn't affect me personally because I'm at the game. So that has to be taken into account too.
Now, back to the Big Ten scheduling, with these games. I mean, I've heard some complaining about it. Are you really that bad off, like you were saying, Vince, if Michigan, East Carolina, and Penn State, Delaware is on Peacock? Like, I know there are more households that have Big Ten network, but are you really that much worse off if they're on Peacock versus Big Ten? Because anyone in the country who has internet can get the Peacock app and, pay for a subscription if they want to watch it. Kind of like you said, I think they're trying to test with that Michigan State Washington game just how many people they're able to get over there. So
sure, absolutely.
I don't know.
I do want to bring I want to bring this up from Mace. He says, okay, what they'll do is if Notre Dame is blowing out Central Michigan, they'll switch to the other game. It's not like a channel on your TV. It's an app. You can pick whatever game you want and watch it.
And that
They're
makes
not
sense.
To switch away from it.
Because when I think about it, like when I've gone through some of the apps, you'll see like different, like they'll advertise different games, like it's mostly soccer games, I think, that I've seen where like they've got multiple games up there. That you
it's just like the ESPN app.
Like that.
Like the ESPN app has multiple
you go
games
to Peacock,
going on.
Right. I mean, it's almost like our YouTube channel for that matter. Like Brian, finished his show just before we started ours, but theoretically we could have two streams going on the same Irish Breakdown YouTube channel at the same time. So I guess it makes a little bit more sense when you start to think about it. But again, I've never accessed live sports in that way. You're much more versed in that. So I'm glad
I'm forced to be. Because I'm forced to be, really. I mean, that's all there is to it, right? So
that's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. So okay. Notre Dame, again, the September 16th Central Michigan Notre Dame game is going to be on Peacock. And like when you look at that Washington, Michigan State,
right.
Would you favor Notre Dame putting a higher profile game on Peacock? Maybe not necessarily a USC or a, Ohio State, that kind of game, but even one of the ACC matchups, something along those lines, rather than, we've had Toledo, Central Michigan. What do we have last year? What was the streaming game last year?
It was the Mac game,
Yeah,
whatever it was.
exactly.
I just remember. So that tells you how memorable it was, right?
Right.
So again, this is taking a personal slant to the whole thing, right? So it doesn't bother me, but I don't want a higher profile game on Peacock because I don't want to hear all the complaining. That's really what it comes down to. Because to be honest with you, Sean,
UNLV was
yeah,
the
there you
Peacock
go.
game last year. Thank you, mate.
To be honest with you, I got rabbit ears to get the air channels, right? And NBC, for whatever reason, of all the air channels that are out there, the digital air channels, NBC comes in like crap at my house.
Huh.
So I watch NBC through the NBC app anyway. So whether I'm watching, if I was home for a home game at my house instead of at the game, I would watch the Notre Dame game through the NBC app.
So you'd have to stream it no matter what.
So it wouldn't make a hill of beans difference to me. I just don't want to hear everybody complain. So I don't.
Can you download the regular NBC app on your TV or is that part of the Roku deal or?
Yeah, if you've got a smart TV, you can have NBC on your.
Okay.
But you have to have a subscription to a cable channel or a cable network or like Dish or DirecTV or something along those lines in order to get live TV. So it just
reminded me. I hope I'm not too late. I need to get my Sunday ticket ordered. Either yesterday was the deadline or today's the deadline for the $100 off. Yeah.
Oh boy.
I just remembered that. I'm glad because I started picturing the different apps that were up and like YouTube TV is up there even though I don't use it, but I'm like, oh hey, need to get that done. Yeah, from what I understand, Jack Swarbrick is actually kind of at the very least toyed with the idea, if not tried to get an NBC to put a higher profile game on the Peacock app in the past. And I don't see the benefit in doing, especially now. Like, I think that the Big Ten is kind of doing Notre Dame's work for them. I think
agreed.
With all the Big Ten is doing, it's kind of going to guarantee that Notre Dame does, they don't have to put bigger games on there anymore because there's going to be all this Big Ten content now.
Yeah. That's what I think the Michigan State Washington game is for. Like, I really do. I completely agree with you. I think they're letting the Big Ten do the heavy lifting on this one so that the majority of real college football fans, the ones that follow Notre Dame, not the Big Ten, aren't upset that a marquee game is on Peacock because they're going to get a ton of pushback if that's the case. They get a ton of pushback when UNLV Notre Dame is on Peacock. Can you imagine if, for example, they put the Ohio State game on there or something? Like,
Ohio State game never, but like, a Wake Forest or a Duke or, those kind of games, I guess.
Yeah.
But again, I don't think you need to because I don't think it's necessary anymore. And it's not like, I guess, those games are that much higher profile, but still I definitely would not put a high profile game like you were just talking about, Ohio State, USC, Clemson, any of those kind of teams in there.
You got 4 more days, by the way. I just looked for you.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Jason was saying, have until the 6th. I'm gonna do it after the show though, so I don't forget and end up
gotta get your Cowboys games.
All right.
So do you have to?
Cryan said he just sold his soul for the ticket, so now his wife is mad at him.
So how does it work? So you don't have to subscribe to YouTube TV.
They have separate packages.
Ticket on there.
They have one package where if you want YouTube TV or you're already a YouTube TV subscriber, you just add it on.
Gotcha.
Or you can get it completely separate. But they offer a discount for the sign up, before June 6th, I guess it is. And I got an email a while back. It's just been sitting there in my inbox. I've been procrastinating because I didn't want to spend the money right away because I don't need to be yelled at either.
Well, I'm looking at the packages and it's cheaper. How is it cheaper to get NFL Sunday Ticket, NFL Red Zone, and YouTube TV than to do all of that and not get YouTube TV? It's very strange.
Well, you're looking at the packages, so I don't. What's the price for all that.
So if you get Red Zone, if you get NFL Sunday Ticket and YouTube TV, all of it, like everything, it's $289.
Okay.
Okay. If you get NFL Sunday Ticket and NFL Red Zone without YouTube TV, it's $389. It's an extra $100.
Now I think the that price with YouTube is just the Sunday Ticket price. I don't think that includes the actual subscription to your YouTube TV.
It does include the subscription, but it also says you have to pay an additional $79 or $72.99 per month.
There you go.
After
that's my point.
That's why. So they get you to sign up for YouTube TV at the lower price.
Yeah, that's like $900 a month or something like that. So yeah.
So sign up for the whole thing and then cancel YouTube TV.
I'm sure they'll find a way to get you if you but the other side of that is if you're getting the ticket, you don't need Red Zone to begin with. Like the Red Zone is, the Red Zone is for people who don't have the ticket, I think. So
true.
But I've heard, they've got like the multi-box view on the screens and stuff like that. I've heard that they're working on being able to customize that, so like if you've got 8 games going on at the same time, you could pick the 4 games or whatever that you want to put in those boxes and stuff like that, which would be cool. So May says the Red Zone is all you need. Maybe if you're a fantasy football player, but I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan, and that's the only reason I'm shelling out all this money is so that I can watch Cowboys games. I don't care about bits and pieces when teams are getting ready to kick field goals. So
good point.
Yeah. James says they'll have more than one game a year on Peacock. I can see it happening.
I don't disagree with that. I'm sure that's in the future. I'm sure it is. Just don't want it.
No.
Just don't want it.
Yeah. And but I mean, look at where TV is going anyway. Everything's already going.
Everything's streaming.
So
I never
probably not going to make much of a difference here.
I never watch live TV except for sporting events. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
I never watch it. I always watch everything after the fact on an app.
Jason said he wishes college football had something like that sometimes. And I know they used to have like DirecTV used to have a college football package because I actually bought it one year before I moved here because I remember Notre Dame was getting ready to play Purdue and I was ticked off that I wasn't going to be able to watch it. So I bought like a mid-season package or something like that. It must not have been popular enough to keep it around. See, Mace, you just proved your own point. He says, I'm a Bears fan. Watching the scoreboard is the only thing I need. Yes, if you're the fan of a garbage team or a team.
Hurtful.
But I'm obviously out of market, so I'll get a lot of Cowboys primetime games, but I can't get all the 1 o'clock and 4:30 games here because of the fact that we're in a market where the Bears, the Lions, and the Colts all take priority in this market over even the national games. So that's where we are. It's where I am anyway.
Yep.
All right, a little basketball talk. ESPN NBA analyst and former coach Jeff Van Gundy's got a rule change he'd like to see the NBA adopt. Van Gundy says there should be no free throws shot in a game until the last 4 minutes of the game. He says if you're fouled in the act of shooting before that, you just count the basket, get the points. Same for technical fouls. But in the final 4 minutes, you would go back to shooting free throws. Is it a buy or a sell from you, Vince?
That's a crazy sell. So automatic, you foul somebody, you just get points? Like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Like, you're a technical foul. No, we're just going to give you the points. You got to at least earn the points. Like, you don't just get points. I don't understand how that is even a logical thing. You just get the points? No.
He wants to speed games up, and this is like his big solution. And it's a huge sell for me as well.
Terrible.
And like, I was listening to the interview where he talked about this, and I'm like, what are you even talking about? And he kind of acknowledged that it would probably take quite a bit to get it to go to this, but free throw shooting is a skill. And it's like, you can't just award those points if the ball never went in the basket. You still have to earn the points somehow. So he said, it's like, oh, the only benefit free throws are, like the announcers get a little bit more time to wax poetic and tell their stories and that kind of thing. It's a
I
huge sell
mean,
for me.
yeah, it's also a chance for the team to catch their breath. It's a chance for announcers to catch their breath. I mean, and I realize it's not all about that, but you've got to, like you said, the be all end all is you've got to earn your points, period. Right? I mean, they're not just going to chuck up a so that means if you chuck a 3 and they call a foul, you just get all 3 of those points. That is terrible. It's terrible. It's terrible.
I think Crying Belly just decided he wanted to come in and joust with us today. He says he loves the rule, and then he shot back at me after my Wheaties remark earlier if someone ate mine today. So he's still
it's amazing to me how wrong a person can actually be over and over again. That is like shocking to me. But you learn something new every day.
That's true. So another proposed Van Gundy rule change. He said he'd like to drastically cut down halftime in NBA games to 5 minutes because he says most of halftime is just a waste of time. He said you're either just reinforcing what you just did, or you're kind of constructively criticize, like don't do this, do this. Like it's kind of debunking the whole myth of the halftime adjustments and all that kind of stuff. So he says cut down the halftime to keep things moving along a little bit quicker. You buy or sell that one?
Well, that explains a lot about Van Gundy's coaching career, that there were never any halftime adjustments for him. So that makes a lot of sense. But there are some halftimes that are too long. You could put a gun to my head, I would never know how long an NBA halftime is. Is it 10 minutes? Is it 20? I have no idea how long an NBA halftime is. 5 minutes isn't quite enough because it takes 5 minutes just to walk
just
to
get into the locker room. Yeah, it's like
so,
you would almost need to start the timer when
right.
they walk in the locker room.
Right. So
and then like the 5 minute would be now they're walking back out. You're absolutely right. Just like the back and forth would take up almost all the time.
That's crazy. I think high school is like 10 minutes, which I think is fine. Chance to go to the bathroom for the players, the fans, the media, whoever. No, 5 minute concession stand or concession. I read Sean Sean Palace. He said there goes concession sales. 5 minutes is way too short. Way too short.
I agree. I think, like 10 minutes minimum, I can see cutting down half times across most sports because I do think that they generally last a little bit too long, especially in college. Now, part of the reason you're doing it in college is because of the bands and all that kind of stuff. But, even that seems to be kind of going away as the years go by. So I wouldn't mind seeing it trimmed down a little bit, but I don't know how much actual benefit there is. I think the players do need maybe a little bit of a breather in between. Although, like we're talking about specifically the NBA here, it's like, all right, so the players are already doing their load management and all this stuff. Like, it's like, is that going to affect it? Or if you're going to cut down on halftime, do you take less load management? So I wouldn't mind seeing it cut back, but not a big one in basketball for me. I'd rather see it, like NFL halftime, I think is 12 minutes or something like that. It's very crisp. Like they have just enough time to take a commercial break, do a little bit of highlights in the studio, get back to the game, do a quick sideline reporter hit, and boom, you're going. Like it's a very good pace.
Yeah, I don't really have an issue with it. I despise long half times at the high school level when they have like, homecoming and all of those different things. But half times don't seem like they're too long in professional sports. They really don't. So I don't really have an issue with it.
Fill in the blank. Soon to be ESPN personality Pat McAfee told Jimmy Traina on the SI Media podcast this week that he was rejected 3 times by the NFL's broadcast boot camp, and that's blank.
Totally understandable. He's not a play-by-play or a color guy, and I don't think that's who he is. So that makes a lot of sense to me because I'm pretty sure that's what that boot camp is. You learn how to be a color guy, and they pair you up with a play-by-play and all of that. Like, that's not his thing. His shtick is to be a talk show host and to be kind of outlandish and all
I think
that.
it's a little bit more than just those two skills. I think it's like general media training, like how to, sit in front of a microphone and do all different kinds of stuff. So, like if it's specific to that, I would get it. I think it's probably just, it's like, oh, here's this punt, because it is players. It's like NFL players. They send them, they go in and they learn essentially how to talk in front of microphones and be on camera and all this different stuff. And I think the fact that he was a punter probably had something to do with that. It's like, how many punters are in demand? I don't know if they
True.
make them do like a demo tape, like traditional broadcasters and stuff like that. But it's crazy that he applied for this thing 3 times. He never got in. And now he is arguably especially from a former player standpoint, he is arguably the king of sports media right now with this deal that he just signed with ESPN that he's getting ready to move to. So props to him. I do think it's crazy though, that like a player, because, there are a lot of NFL players who get into that thing, I guess, who are not necessarily big name guys, like the guys that you've never heard of. And that's how they discover some of these guys. But at the same time, it's like, you would think after he's rejected twice, you just go, let's take a flyer on this McAfee. He's still trying to get in, let's see what he's got. If he had gotten in though, he probably goes a much more, he ends up on a more traditional path, and he's probably not in the spot that he's in right now, ready to take over the world.
Agreed. So, I mean, it led him to doing basically the podcast that he's doing now, and that's where he got famous. It has nothing to do with ESPN boot camp, and I would almost wear that as a badge of honor because ESPN just signed him to that multi-million-dollar deal. Like, I couldn't do your boot camp, but I'm cashing your checks. Like, okay. I honestly don't have a problem with it though. Like, as an Indiana guy, I knew who he was because he was, he was an outspoken punter and all. Okay, cool. And he would go down and make a tackle. I knew who he was. I don't think people around the country knew who he was. And that's got to be part of it, right? I mean, I do believe that has to be part of it.
Yeah, I agree. From the chat, Decaf 18 asked if I saw the big contract the IU women's basketball coach signed today, $1.3 million a year till 2029. I hadn't seen that, but I mean, she's got them going in the right direction. Couple earlier exits from the NCAA tournament than expected, I think, the last couple of years. But, having a lot of success down there in Bloomington right now. And Tommy says, unpopular opinion, pineapple goes on pizza. Have you ever been a pineapple on pizza guy?
No. I like pineapple, not on my pizza.
I went through a little phase. Someone else, this was back when I was in the Army, and there was a joint that we would order pizzas from, and this other guy, he would order Canadian bacon and pineapple. And since he was paying for it, I gave it a shot, and it's like, it's not bad. Not bad. Yeah, I've never done it since then. I've never,
There you go.
Never done it since
completely
then.
over to the dark side.
That's right.
It's good.
But I didn't mind it at all.
I just don't want that. What is it, like tart? Like that tart pineapple taste? Like that doesn't belong on pizza to me.
But it's tart and sweet at the same time, mixed in with I might have to do that here pretty soon.
Oh no. Sean,
taking me back.
Stop. Meat. Put your meat on the pizza.
What's the craziest thing you've ever put on a pizza?
Oh my gosh.
Or eaten on a pizza? I know you've eaten some pizza that you didn't pay for. So like what's the craziest pizza that you've had?
Well, I mean, I'm not a big fan of like Supreme, like everything, like toppings falling off kind of a thing. But if it's the only thing around, I'll go after it. But, I'm more of like a sausage, pepperoni, mushroom guy. Like that's where I'm at. And I don't generally venture out like anywhere else. Although I will say I'm a big fan of like the Philly cheesesteak pizza. That's actually really good. Like really good.
Yeah. Used to get those at Domino's every now and then. Yeah.
Yes, that's where we go and to get that specific pizza only. Mm-hmm. And it's worth it. It's really good.
It's a good one. Pepperoni and sausage is my favorite as well.
Can't go wrong. That's why we
Not
get
at all.
along.
The grease, the meat, the
Yep.
cheese, the
Bring
sauce.
it. Have you ever taken a napkin and dabbed your grease off?
Used to back in the day, but now it's like, not anymore.
Let it go, baby.
Not gonna worry about it.
Talking about.
If I'm eating pizza, I'm eating pizza.
Yes. Good man.
That's right. Crying. Where was it? He had the other one. He said macaroni pizza. I've seen people do that. I've never. That seems like it'd be a little bit heavy. Put macaroni.
A lot.
On your
it's
pizza.
A lot. And is the macaroni like dry? Like because it's in the oven? Does it dry out? Is it?
I think it's like
creamy?
mac and cheese. Like that kind
creamy?
of thing. Yeah.
Interesting.
I've had egg on a pizza once. Actually, there's a place.
That's wild.
There's a place in Chicago, a thin crust place.
Okay.
That we saw on Food Network a few years back that we hit every now and then, and they put like egg throughout the they break open like several eggs on the pizza, and I think it comes with like sausage, maybe some pepperoni and that kind of thing.
Huh. I would give that a shot. I'm not a fan of eggs. I don't know about eggs on pizza, but I'd give it once. I'd give it a once up.
It was worth trying once.
Yeah.
Jason says he tears up the CC's. I just found out the other day they closed down the CC's.
Closed down. And look, not the best pizza in the world, granted. But they had they had like the dessert pizzas and they had different stuff. And it was a great place to like take the kids,
It's funny that you're saying this because when I saw it closed, my wife and I drove by and the building was empty.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I guess the D'Adarios couldn't keep it open.
We would go there, I don't know, like once every couple months kind of a thing, but we went and it was very disappointing when they closed it down. It was.
I bet.
I didn't mind CC's. I really didn't.
No, it wasn't bad. It was like for what you pay.
Exactly. You get what you pay for. I mean, you have to understand that going in. And there was some great people watching to do at CC's Pizza. Like
that's true too.
That was ideal
choice. All right. Well, that's going to do it for today. I'm just very hungry right now.
I know, right? I was thinking the same thing. In my head, I'm like, I think I need to go get a Domino's Philly cheesesteak pizza now.
Ooh. Godfathers back in the day. We used to, when my sister was in college and she was playing basketball, they had, I guess it was a Valentino's. It was close to Godfather, but it was have you ever had Valentino's?
No.
Say it was fairly similar to Godfathers, I think. But
okay.
I don't know if you even had Godfathers, but they had a buffet, the pizza buffet. And so we would always hit the pizza buffet after my sister's games. It was like bang for your buck.
Right. Yeah. Loved it. Big pizza buffet fan. When Pizza Hut used to have the pizza buffet back in the day, I hammered some Pizza Hut pizza buffet.
We had a teacher in elementary school where if you got 100% on your spelling test it was maybe like 5 in a row or something like that. If you got 100%, he would take you to Pizza Hut to the buffet.
Now they'd call that kid like a predator. That guy.
I think I got it twice.
See.
Yeah, that's right.
but I love that. Like that is incentive right there, man.
But he's one of those. I think it was 5th grade, and he blew my mind that summer. Mr. Spratt. That summer we went to it wasn't Home Depot, but it was like the lumber yard or wherever, and he's got like his lumber apron on, and he's working on it. And it was like the first time, like you ever. You ever found out that your teachers work other jobs, that kind of thing?
That's hilarious.
Yeah. Wonder how many minds you've blown over the years.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, seriously. I hate seeing kids out in the wild. It's not
I bet.
I've had to wait, like when I was a waiter, like I would have sometimes every once in a while I would have to wait on one of my students. You want to talk about awkward.
Yeah, no kidding.
That was awkward.
That would be different.
Yeah.
It's like, can I just stay behind the bar tonight?
Yeah, I don't want to do this. Somebody want to take that table for me? That'd be great.
All right. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap it up with that because everyone's hungry now and we've got to go
right?
eat. So have a good weekend. Weather's getting better, so enjoy it out there. And we will talk to you Monday. Smash the like button on your way out. And, of course, subscribe, rate, and review. Talk to you Monday. Aviation Sports Talk.